After really enjoying the first Terrifier last night, I wanted to dive right into the sequel, and I'm still trying to process what exactly it is that I saw because, huh? Hi everyone, my name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to Audio Commentary, and yeah, I just got done watching Terrifier 2. This is one that I was really excited to dive into after I watched Terrifier last night. I thought that the first movie was really entertaining. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was violent and dark and scary, and it was very limiting in its scope. And as a result of that, it crafted a very tense, short 90-minute, less than 90-minute movie. And this one is almost like the antithesis to that one. It's like almost a pure juxtaposition, and I don't quite get what exactly Damien Leone was going for. Now, that's not to say that this is the end of the franchise. Obviously, that's not. We know if you've seen it, there's that post-credit scene. We'll talk about that one. But I'm trying to understand what it was he was going for here, because if you know, just last week I watched the Halloween trilogy, and I talked a lot about how the Halloween trilogy really dove into the metaphorical when it comes to horror. Whereas this movie, if I was going to assign a label to it, I would say it kind of ties in more to the metaphysical, and you could almost argue like the spiritual to some extent. What I mean by that is some of the vibes I got while watching this, which let me just quickly point out. One, cinematography is badass. The score from Paul Wiley is badass. The acting was really good. The effects were really good, albeit a little bit over the top and kind of overstayed their welcome at a couple points in time. If you've seen it, you know the one scene I'm talking about. But it was still entertaining enough. The downside to it, though, is that it had nearly a 2.5 hour long runtime, which it did not need. There was a lot with this movie they could have trimmed back on, and I get why they didn't do it, but at the same time, it's kind of like the last movie was very precise. This movie has a lot going on, a lot more characters, and as a result, there was a lot more exposition, and all those characters needed their own arcs. But you probably could have like tightened it up a little bit here and there, and it would have been, I think, a bit more of an approachable film. Not to say, hey, look, my criticism don't mean crap. This movie was made for $250,000. And it's grossed now, I believe, 6.3 million in the box office, and it actually pushed Top Gun Maverick out of the top 10. You know, even though that movie had over $1 billion run, still over 21 weeks. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about here. Like, this movie has definitely captivated horror fans, and while it hasn't made as much as Halloween Ends or Smile, it is having that positive word of mouth. And I do think that a lot of the people that are kind of coming into this are coming into it, and they're kind of getting, either people are telling them or the experience they're getting is that it's kind of like very Michael Myers, very Freddy Krueger, very Jason, more Freddy and Jason in regards to that metaphysical versus Michael Myers. And I would even say maybe even to an extent, a little bit of Chucky, you know, and this movie definitely plays up some of the tropes. There's some key references here and there. In fact, my favorite Easter egg in the movie was the guy at the Halloween party dressed in a Moobies outfit. That's right. There was a Kevin Smith Clerks 2, Clerks 3 reference. Hell, even Dogma, if you want to go back to 1999 in the movie. You couldn't see the logo completely, but if you knew what you were looking for, you knew the golden cow, and you knew that it was Moobies, and you knew he's going to hell for wearing it. But that means I really got a kick out of that. The story is probably the thing that I'm like, again, as we get to the end of the movie, it just becomes like, really, what the fuck? I do have to say, though, that the leading lady here, Lauren LaVera, make sure I get that correctly, did an amazing job as Sienna. I thought she was great. She is definitely going to be a fan favorite, I think, with a lot of horror film fans out there. I think her character at this point is becoming like a new Laurie Strode, or becoming like an Ellen Ripley, or coming like a Sarah Connor, if you will, and kind of playing in to those movies that took place in the late 70s to early to mid 80s, where, you know, maybe even going into some of the fantasy realm, which is like one of the vibes I got. So again, like Red Sonja, or like, you know, Lady Hawk, or the Beastmaster movies, or things along those lines, not specifically those, but things along those lines. And I got a little bit of a vibe of the Evil Dead out of this as well, kind of like a little bit of like, I don't want to say like the Necronomicon, because the journal that the dad had wasn't the Necronomicon, but it kind of felt like that was the vibe it was getting off. I think one of the things this movie was really going for was it was trying to play into all of these like facets of horror and dive into something that could explain who art was without necessarily explaining who or what art is. So when I reviewed Terrifier, I was like, why was he eating the woman's face at the end of the movie? The cannibalism made no sense. Like the violence, the body mutilation, genital mutilation, all of that made sense, but the cannibalism didn't. Well, in this movie, they don't even really explain it, but they hint at it by saying that if he can consume body parts, it allows him to regenerate, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a really interesting way of going about it, which would explain why he does what he does in the movie. It's his way of trying to stay alive. But my question then becomes, for what purpose? What purpose put art here? Because if they go into the whole, like, clown restaurant, that whole thing that they've had, that little weird dream that Sienna has, that it wasn't even a dream. It's a real place underneath an old abandoned carnival. It's like, what exactly is this place? Is that hell? And is that where art came from? Also, I'll never look at a Tommy gun scene in a movie ever the same way again, because that, my friends, was dynamite. I loved it. That part cracked me the hell up. That part was great. I love that. But really, it's like, what is this place? What is art? And then who is Sienna? Who is she? And why is she the one who can fight him? Why is she the one who can stop him? And what happens now? None of that was really explained. It was heavily hinted at, heavily talked about, heavily, emphasized. But I got a vibe out of the Paranormal Activity franchise. If you go back and you watch the first couple Paranormal Activity movies, they really only divulge like the plot about the overall situation. One, maybe two lines of dialogue in the first couple films. You really have no idea what the overall story is, because they don't really do a lot to explain the mythos of the world surrounding. And it does make it a bit more of a compelling and a bit more of an interesting world. So in this particular situation, when you're looking at art and you're looking at how he can survive all the damage that he gets, and how he is able to have the strength to literally rip people in half and rip their arms off and do things like that, he has this extraordinary strength. But there's also the little girl. Is she real? I mean, like, there's moments where she's tangible. There's moments where it seems like only he can see her, but then like the heroes can see her, and she can pick up Art's head at the end of the movie and she carries it away. She clearly is the 11-year-old girl who was mutilated at the abandoned amusement park that we got a bit of information on at the beginning of the movie, but why did she turn? And then my question is, when the brother shot her with the shotgun and blew her up when she was imitating the mom, did she then, also reappear? Because she just came back out, picked up the head later on and walked away. But when Art gets decapitated, we get to the end credit scene. So there's rules of this world that I don't get. And it's weird. And I understand, like, I'm okay with any time that they want to go to this kind of place. I just want there to be a clear set of rules to determine what it is we're going to see. Like, one of the things I loved about Squid Game is, again, very dark, very cynical, very nihilistic, had a lot to say about social commentary. This movie kind of did as well, but it had rules established that you knew what were going to happen. And that was what the people in the movie and the show and the players lived by. Here, everything seems up in the air and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, is the dad Art? Did he kill himself in order to be resurrected as Art? Because he drew deaths from the first movie. So, like, how did he know about that? How did he know about the pizza guy getting the knife in the face? Or how did he know about Mike, the janitor getting stomped on the face? Like, how did he know these things? That's something I want to know more of. So are we going to get Terrifier 3? Obviously, we're going to get Terrifier 3. And then what's going on with Vicky? Yeah, okay. Like, like, I understand that she went through some trauma, and I understand that she definitely is angry, at what happened. And then somehow at the end of the movie, she's in a mental institution, which makes all the sense in the world. But then she magically gets herself pregnant and gives birth to Art's head, which had then been decapitated from the body. And he's there and she's laughing like she birthed him, but she also wrote that she loves him. So is she his mother and lover? I mean, are we getting into some Sigmund Freud level stuff here? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what this movie is going to do with future installments. All I can say is, yeah, I'm in. I'm in. All right. You've got me hooked enough to want to know what the hell's going to happen next. But let me quickly talk about one thing that I felt was kind of good and bad. The gore. Most of the gore was really good. I enjoyed it. The scene with the friend. Okay, like, look, there's a level. Like, okay, in the first movie with the friend and she gets sawed in half, that was messed up. But here he takes it to a whole other level where it's like he takes off her arm, he scalps her, cuts out her eye. I mean, like, she's alive during all this. He pours bleach on her, puts salt in the wound. I mean, it's Eli Roth Hostel levels of violence that don't do it anywhere near as good as Eli Roth did. Because if you go back and watch Hostel played it like it was real. This played it up like it was campy while still trying to be a little bit on the scary side. Like, this movie wasn't frightening. The first one was actually kind of frightening. This movie wasn't frightening. This movie was just gore. And I'm okay with that. But I kind of hope for the next one that they kind of take it and go back to the roots on it, where it's like very limited in scope, very body horror, very, the music and like the lack of dialogue, and they build the tension. There wasn't a lot of that here. But that being said, David Howard Thornton did a great job as Art. Very expressive, great as the mime. The little girl was great as that other mime. And everyone in the movie was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the characters in the movie. I enjoyed the cast in the movie. I just found like some stuff to not really kind of settle just yet. But again, we're going to get a whole franchise out of this. So he'll probably explain to us exactly what's going on towards the end. At this point now, this is a multi-million-dollar, franchise. It ain't going anywhere. But I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know down in the comment section. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you again for watching, and peace out.